Hey Year 7s, welcome back. Once again, this video is going to be covering 4G and 4H, which is stuff that at least I know my class has already gone through. So for some of you, this is revision. For others, this is new content. All right, so this is on multiplying and dividing fractions, which is on page 220 or 228 of your textbook, depending on what exercise you're looking at. Alright, so multiplying and dividing fractions is actually a lot simpler in my opinion than adding and subtracting fractions. The main reason being you do not have to have the same denominator. Now, if you remember adding and subtracting fractions, you have to remember that the denominator has to be the same. But when you're multiplying or dividing fractions, the denominator does not need to be the same. Okay? It's a very straightforward way that we multiply fractions. If I have a fraction that looks like that, multiply a fraction looks like that. I just multiply the numerators and I multiply the denominators, right? So I multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Okay, and a very quick example of this, if I have, for example, 6/7 times by 2/3, all I do is I say, well, 6 times 2 on the top, 7 times 3 on the bottom, 6 times 2 is 12, 7 times 3 is 21. Now, normally I would be done, but I know I can simplify this, right? I know that 12 can be divided by 3, and I know that 21 can also be divided by 3. So I end up with, if I divide both sides by 3, divided by 3, divided by 3, I end up with 4/7. Now 4/7 is your simplified fraction. Now the issue is we actually can simplify earlier on, right? So what I've done is simplify the variant. What if I had 6/7 times 2/3? I can actually simplify it from this very stage, right? And if you look on the left over here, it says, if possible, simplify, divide, or cancel fractions before multiplying, right? So we can multiply vertically or diagonally. For example, I can cancel this way, cancel that way, or I can cancel this way. It doesn't matter as long as it's not horizontal. And the reason being we have to cancel one at the top, one at the bottom, right? So for example, this way, or this way, or this way, or this way is fine, but you should never cancel this way, okay? The reason being because you need a numerator and a denominator. So what I mean by canceling is I can actually simplify it, right? So I know that over here I've got a 6 and I've got a 3 over there, okay? Well, I'm thinking, well, how many times does 3 go into 6? I know it goes into twice. So I can divide by 3, and I write 2. Divide that by 3, 3 divided by 3 is 1. And I end up with this new equation of 2/7 times by 2/1. From there, I can just say, well, 2 times 2 is 4, over 7 times 1 is 7, and that's it. Right? So we can actually simplify it earlier on in order to avoid doing it at the very end. Okay? So that's a very important skill we'll be going through. The other two things that I do want to mention for multiplying fractions is remember that a whole number can be written as a fraction with the denominator of 1. Now that sounds like a bunch of words, but we can go ahead and actually put this into practice. If I have 6, that is the same as if I write 6/1. Okay, so for example, if I had $6 and I had to split it between one person, so myself, how much do I have? $6 is the same thing, right? So any number, like could be 2 million, is the same as 2 million divided by 1. Any number divided by 1 is the same as that number. The other thing is if you see of, times, lots of, product, whatever, they mean to multiply, okay? So it's an important skill to be able to identify what those mean. So they mean multiply. All right, let's go ahead and do some examples. So over here, on the bottom, I've got 2/3 times 1/5. Now, once again, we do not have to make the denominator the same. So I say, well, 2 times 1 divided by 3 times 5. And I end up with 2 times 1, which is 2, over 3 times 5 is 15. Now, there's no possible way to simplify that because there is no common multiple between 2 and 15 besides 1. So I can leave the answer there. Let's go ahead and do this one over here, B. Now, first things first, I can see that I can simplify, okay? So if I go over here, we can see that they both have a common factor, that being 3. So I'm going to divide this one by 3, and I get 1. Divide that by 3, I get 3. What about the other way around? I've got 4 and 8. If I divide 4 by 4, I get 1. If I divide 8 by 4, I get 2. So I can rewrite this fraction now, and I get 1 over 1 times by 2 over 3. I know that 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 3 is 3, so my answer is 2 over 3. Awesome. That's it. Now for this one over here, we've got a whole number on the right, and of, remember, means multiply, okay? So I'm going to write 2 over 5, and of means multiply, so I'm going to write times. Now 32, remember what I was saying about the fractions? 32 is the same as 32 over 1. So now I've got my actual equation. So 2 times 32 is 64 over 5. Now, that's actually, once again, an improper fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and try and change it into a mixed number. How many times does 5 go into 64? The answer is 12, right? Because 12 times 5 is 60. So 12. And remember we had the 4 left over, right? So it's 12 and 4 over 5. Okay. This one over here on the right, I've got 6 1/4 times by 2 2/5. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change them into improper fractions. Okay? So the first one over here, 4 times 6, that's 24. It's 25 over 4 times by, now 5 times 2, that's 10, plus the 2 is 12. I get 12 over 5. Once again, I know I can simplify, so I'm going to go ahead and divide that by 5, both of them. 25 divided by 5 gives me 5. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. If I divide this one over here, I get 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And I end up with the equation 5 over 1 times by 3 over 1. And that gives me 5 times 3 is 15. Over 1 times 1 is 1. In other words, it's 15. Okay. Now, dividing fractions is actually quite similar, right? The only thing different is that we're going to invert or flip the second fraction and then multiply them, okay? Now, the best way to multiply or divide mixed numbers is to convert to improper fractions, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and find the reciprocal. Now, reciprocal is what I was talking about earlier over here. It's inverting or flipping the fraction, okay? So if I've got 2 over 3, I know that the reciprocal is going to be 3 over 2. That's it. I just flip these numbers over here. Over this one over here, I know that 5 is the same as 5 over 1, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it, so the reciprocal would be 1 over 5. Yeah? Does that make sense? Great. I didn't hear your response, but hopefully that was a yes. Alright, let's find 5 over 8 divided by 3. So I know that 5 over 8 is just 5 over 8, obviously. Now I'm going to divide it by, now 3 is the same as 3 over 1. So I'm going to end up with 5 over 8. Now I'm going to flip it and then multiply. Remember, flip, then multiply, okay? So if I flip it, I get 1 over 3. I'm going to multiply, right? So 5 times 1 is 5. 8 times 3 is 24. Great. Similar thing over here. I know that 6 is the same as 6 over 1. I'm going to flip it, so it's 3 over 1 instead of 1 over 3. And then multiply them, and I get 18 over 1, or in other words, 18. Great. Let's go ahead and do some ones with fractions on both sides. So 3 over 5, I know 3 over 5 is, I find the reciprocal, or the flipped over inverted version of the second one, so 8 over 3, and I multiply them. I know I can cancel them out because there's 3 on both of them, so that becomes 1. Divide both of them by 3. And I end up with 1 over 5 times by 8 over 1. And that gives me 8 over 5. Now, once again, that is an improper fraction, so we turn it into a mixed number by saying how many times does 5 go into 8? Well, once, so it's 1 and 3 over 5. Last one over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn them into improper numbers, so improper fractions, my apologies. End up with 5 times 2, which is 10, plus the 2 is 12. So 12 over 5. Hopefully you guys remember how to turn mixed numbers into improper fractions. Now, I've got on the right, divided by 5 times 1 is 5, plus the 3 is 8 over 5. Now, I'm going to flip the second one and multiply them. So flip it, and then multiply. Remember, I'm flipping this one. Multiply. I can go ahead and cancel because I know that 5 divided by 5 is 1. And so do those across. And I've got 12 and 8. What number goes in both of them? 4. So I know that 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And I end up with the fraction of 3 over 1 times by 1 over 2. From there, I multiply and I get 3 times 1, which is 3, and 1 times 2, which is 2. Once again, that's an improper fraction. I turn that into a mixed number and I get 1 1/2. Alright, good luck.